Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cinema Heroes. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzel.
I'm Jay Stu.
And today we're talking about The Batman, released in 2022, directed by Matt Reeves, written by Matt Reeves and Peter Craig, and starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Colin Farrell, Jeffrey Wright, Paul Dano, John Turturro, Peter Sarsgaard has a small but significant role, and Andy Serkis. This was Stu and I's most anticipated movie of the year when we did that at the end of 2021, and now it's on HBO Max now. It's going to be released on physical at the end of this month.
Yes.
Which I
have mine pre-ordered.
Nice, very nice. I do not have mine pre-ordered, but I am going to purchase it. This is one of the rare movies that John got to see in the theater too, right, John?
I did. It's true. Before this, it was Spider-Man, and I don't even remember before that.
Yeah. Well, John, I know Stu's thoughts, even though I do want to hear them. But he and I did on his podcast, we did kind of a spoiler talk right when the movie got released. But I want to hear what your initial thoughts were coming out of the theater.
I thought it was a really good Batman film that I enjoyed. That's the thoughts that went through my head.
All right, nice. All right, Stu, what were your initial thoughts?
I obviously enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I loved the aesthetic of it. I thought, Robert Pattinson did a fantastic job in his role. We got a lot of Batman in this movie, which I was very, very pleased with. There are not many things that I don't like about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one or two. But the real question was it better than The Dark Knight?
Right.
And I don't know about that. That being said, this is a Batman movie in every sense of the word. It is a very, very Batman movie, and I was quite pleased with what I saw.
I agree. I think you and I feel very similar. There's not much that I had in terms of problems with the film. There's one scene that we'll get to that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth when I saw it in the theater. But overall, I thought it was a really good movie. And I'm sure we will compare it to The Dark Knight here and there throughout this conversation. And I think that just goes to show how good it is, because The Dark Knight is clearly the gold standard. And so us even saying, is it better than Dark Knight, is just, I think, a good compliment, because no other, we've only had one other standalone Batman movie since The Dark Knight, which is The Dark Knight Rises. Mm-hmm. But, it just goes to show how good it is that we're all kind of, talking about whether or not it is up to par with that film.
Yeah.
So walking out of the movie theater, I really, really liked it. There's a lot I loved about it. Very little I didn't like about it. And one of the things you said, actually, there's a lot of Batman in this movie. That's one of the things that I so love about it, is that he is so rarely Bruce Wayne in this movie. Mm-hmm. Which is not a problem. It's not like I hate Bruce Wayne scenes, but it's just so cool to see a Batman movie where he is Batman for 90% of the movie, which is, I just think, super cool. So,
yeah, it's refreshing. Nobody has done that.
Right.
Even in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was Batman for a lot of the movie, but still not
right.
Nearly.
There's still a lot of Bruce Wayne
movie.
Scenes, and yeah. One of the things I like about the movie is that he's still learning, and we see that throughout the film, and he hasn't learned yet how to be Bruce Wayne and use it to kind of his advantage. He did a little bit, going to the funeral. He realized, okay, I can go to the funeral as Bruce Wayne and maybe see if the Riddler shows up, but he hasn't. And like you mentioned in Batman vs Superman or in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he shows up as Bruce Wayne because he's. It's because it's still part of, him working as Batman, kind of.
Yeah.
And so, and this version of Batman, he hasn't quite figured out how to do that. he's got to be Batman all the time, and Bruce Wayne, he doesn't care about the Bruce Wayne part of his life. And so yeah, I find that interesting. I like seeing a Batman who's still kind of figuring things out, or at least I think it really worked in this film.
I love Matt Reeves' approach to this Batman because he's at the beginning of his career, but we skip over the origin story because we've seen it. Yeah,
we don't need to see it. We don't need to see the parents dying and stuff. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But he's been Batman for 2 years now. The movie starts out in year 2, but he's still, like you said, he's still trying to figure out that dichotomy, and that balance between Bruce Wayne and Batman, because for him, being Batman all the time, he's obsessive about it.
Right.
Like he can't not be Batman. It's a compulsion for him. So to be Bruce Wayne is a skill that he has to hone.
Right.
I was going to just talk about the intro into the movie and what that was like. I love the, we get to some just not so much action, it's just suspenseful, moments very quickly, and you know what kind of movie you're watching. It's like a psychological, just mystery detective story, and I love the portrayal of the Riddler. Going into Batman though. So just I love the little nitbits that show that he is still kind of new, where you have the gang scene and he's walking towards them, and they laugh at him and ask him, what are you supposed to be? But then after he like beats up the leader, you hear someone, I had my subtitles on, and someone says it's him. So they don't know who he is, but they have heard of him.
Right.
And they've heard, and people on the streets have heard enough of him enough that they don't disbelieve if they're approached by him now,
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing I don't know about is, when he goes in to the police scene for the first time, and they're all standing there just kind of staring at him as he's like, in my mind, this is not his first time helping a large group of police officers. What do you guys think?
I kind of got the impression that he worked fairly closely with Gordon, but that he wasn't really, number one, he's not, the police force, I get the impression, is very corrupt. Gordon is really the only good cop. And so I don't really see Batman helping a whole lot of the cops, but he does help Gordon. And so this is probably the first time that he's been brought to, it might not be the first time he's been brought to a crime scene, but it's the first time maybe he was brought to a crime scene that was this in the spotlight, I guess you could say.
Yeah. I agree. I think this is definitely not his first time helping the police indirectly. Because he obviously already has an established relationship with Gordon.
Right.
But I think this was like the first big crime of his Batman career.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that's why all the police were there, and it wasn't something on a small scale. Like this affected the entire city.
Right.
So that the Batman and
there's so many cops at that crime scene. And everything.
The commissioner was there. Gordon was there. But
and the commissioner talks about, like, he mentions why this one. So they do have, I guess, a history of him coming. He's like, this is the mayor. He's like, I've got everyone out here. They're going to see us.
They're going to see him.
With this jokester dressing up like, anyway.
Yeah. But backing up to the opening scene, I got goosebumps watching that opening scene. Like I got chills. I was watching it with my wife, and I looked over to her. I was like, "Do you know what kind of movie this is going to be?" Like, because the way it opens up with a voiceover from Robert Pattinson, and it's very reminiscent of the first page of a comic book. And I like as he was talking, I could like see the captions on the panels. I was like, this is brilliant. Right. Yeah. And like it when the helicopter was going through the city and shining the spotlight on the criminals, I got Batman the animated series vibes so heavy with the Gotham City blimps. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm watching this right now.
One of the things I love about that scene too is how, I mean, he talks about in the voiceover how, he's like, they think they see me in the shadows, and the camera does these slow movements towards these dark areas, and we even kind of expect Batman to walk out, but he never does. And, until he finally does with the gang. And I never noticed that, John, what you said about how they were like, oh, it's him, because it is Halloween, so it's when he first shows up, I think they all just think it's some guy in a costume. Until he beats, which I love the fact that the movie opens on Halloween. I think that's just another kind of, it just has a Batman kind of vibe to it as well, which I think is
it's great. A very cool moment. You're being taken through the city, that everyone is, it's raining, it's dark and dreary. You've got people wearing like clown masks, and it's just, it feels like a menacing town that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie, more than any other Batman movie we've ever seen, completely nails the aesthetic from the standalone Batman comics. Like it 100% knows what it is. This is probably the most self-aware Batman movie that we've ever gotten.
I want to back up just a little bit. I don't want to go through the movie beat by beat because we'll be here for 6 hours if we do that, but we did skip over the very, very beginning of the movie, which is the Riddler scene with the mayor.
Like the prologue.
Yeah, and I love that scene too. It's got such a creepy vibe. It's got a David Fincher-esque, Seven or Zodiac type feel to it. And it was a really good and creepy way to start the movie off, I thought,
Oh yeah. I mean, the Riddler is like very scary in that scene.
The music they use too is really what I think nails it in. And that shot where you see the reflection of the TV in his glasses. First, I'm pretty sure it was intentionally. My first thought was Batman. The first time I saw it.
Well, I thought the movie starts off with his like POV looking through like binoculars or something, type of thing.
Right.
And I of course thought Batman, but then when we see the kid playing, I thought, oh, this is Bruce Wayne. Like I was thinking it was like a flashback type thing. Like we're starting with Bruce Wayne as a kid. And then once we saw the mayor inside the house, I recognized him from the trailer, and so I knew that it was the guy that gets killed. But yeah, it was it kind of, I almost wondered if he did that on purpose, kind of makes you think whose POV are we looking at right here, right now, type of thing.
I didn't think it was Batman, namely because he would. I figured that was the guy that was gonna die,
right?
And you heard him breathing heavily,
right?
So and I was like, Batman wouldn't, Batman wouldn't do that. So I immediately thought that it was a Riddler.
That's a good point.
I don't even know if I knew what the Riddler looked like before seeing this movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I watched that teaser trailer that came out from DC Fandom about a bajillion times.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I
that's one of the best trailers I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh. So good.
Still.
And then the first like official trailer that came out, I watched about half of it 100 times, but never quite watched the second half because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. And then the second and final trailer that came out, I avoided completely, and I was really glad that I did because it showed a lot more than I would have wanted to see before seeing the movie.
Yeah, I saw that last trailer in the theater. I was trying to avoid it, but I keep going to the movie theater and it kept showing it. So eventually I was gonna see it. So but I tried my best to kind of like dismiss it and forget about it once I went into the movie theater.
I am not opposed to closing my eyes during the previews. If it's like, I try not to hear them either, but like if I'm sitting in a theater and there's not much I can do, I'll just sit there and close my eyes. I did that for Man of Steel back in the day because I had only watched the teaser trailer for Man of Steel, which shows nothing. Yeah. And so I went to go see Star Trek Into Darkness, and they showed the trailer, and I was like right in the middle of a row, people all around. I was like, I can't go anywhere, so I just had to like close my eyes and just listen to it. But
I did it not too long ago, at least in the past 2 or so years, and I remember plugging my ears and thinking, I don't care if anyone sees me because
I've done that before too.
I'm not getting
like,
spoiled.
I've done
this
that.
is more important.
I've done that.
Yep. I mean, trailers just now. I feel like nowadays trailers just show way too much, especially.
And they have too many trailers. I mean,
well,
like BVS had like 5 trailers.
Right. There's always, for every movie, it feels like there's always at least a teaser, a trailer, and then a final trailer. And it's like we don't need that many trailers.
Yeah.
I actually really like.
You really only need one trailer.
Yeah.
We don't need a teaser. We don't need a trailer for a trailer.
Right. I understand why they do it for like some of these bigger superhero movies. They're trying to, we're all dying to see footage from the Batman. So they show us a teaser, gets us excited. 6 months later, they'll show us the trailer. But then 2 months later, they'll show us the final trailer, whatever. So
the final trailer.
Yeah. But I agree. They don't need that many. But
no.
But yeah, so anyway, John, I watched the teaser trailer about a bajillion times, like I said. And so the Riddler, you see him with his mask and his glasses in that trailer. Or in that teaser a bunch, or at least, a few times. So I knew what he would look like going into it. And because I had watched that trailer so many times, I recognized like the house and stuff. I realized that the guy who gets murdered, this was him. And I was able to piece some of that stuff together. Yeah. And like when Peter Sarsgaard shows up at the funeral with the bomb on, I was able to figure out from the trailer that the guy who got killed in the beginning, that was his funeral. And so it was like little things like that I could kind of piece together from that trailer. But
well, since we're on the topic of the appearance of the Riddler, let's talk about that.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think for this movie, it is incredible. It's not, my favorite. I
agree.
My favorite version of the Riddler. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It is pretty amazing. I got the Funko Pop up there. My favorite version of the Riddler is the animated series where he's got the suit and the kind of the bowler hat, and he's got like the one question mark type of thing, and he's got the mask. But that wouldn't work in this movie, and so I think in this movie, the green mask with the green jacket and the kind of Zodiac question mark style logo is just perfect.
Yeah, it really just hits home with like a serial killer. They just nailed it.
Absolutely.
You got the duct tape and all that stuff. The voice changer, which I think is really used really well in this. And then you've got these really disturbing like videos that he's posting on social media.
Yeah.
He feels real.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to a point where it's disturbing. It's scary that he feels so real.
Terrifying. Really.
Yeah.
The first time I heard him do like that yell at
Peter Sarsgaard's character.
No, I think he does it to the guy who had the like rat or the rats.
Oh, the commissioner. Yeah, it's like
was that the commissioner? Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right.
And he like does this like yell thing, and I remember the first time I heard it, all I could think was someone trying to, come like be on the level of Heath Ledger.
So in that scene where he's on video, because I think like I can't remember if the news gets it or something, but somebody shows that video, and I thought the exact same thing. This is reminiscent of that scene from The Dark Knight where "Are you the real Batman?" With the Joker and the whole "look at me" type thing.
Yeah,
but it really works. It's very true too. I think like the whole thing about Riddler having like those 500 followers and posting videos and stuff like that's I feel like somebody would do that,
absolutely
in today's day and age type of thing. So it kind of really worked for me. But yeah, I had the same thought. The first time I watched it, I thought this reminds me of The Dark Knight, that one scene.
Yeah. But in a good way though. It wasn't exactly a copycat.
Right.
You could definitely tell that it was greatly influenced by that scene, but the scene still works. It's still a great, scary, intimidating scene.
Yes, yeah. I agree.
And Paul Dano he gives a fantastic performance as Riddler in this movie.
I was about to ask what you guys thought about Paul Dano as the Riddler.
I loved it. He's not quite as good as Heath Ledger's Joker.
Sure, but it's a different character too.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I thought he did an excellent job with the material that he was given. He, like I said, he felt real. He felt very scary. His line delivery was very deliberate and well thought out. You can tell that this version of the Riddler is a completely different persona than in this movie, Edward Nashton.
Right. Yeah.
He's normally Nigma, but in this movie he's Nashton. But he's not Edward Nashton in a Riddler suit. He has embodied a completely different personality.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant because we've never seen that before from the Riddler.
Right. Yeah. No, I loved Paul Dano's performance, and I thought, I've seen a couple of comments online about how he was over the top, but I don't agree with that. I loved it. Yeah, I think he
was over the top, but I thought it worked.
The moments where he goes big, and there's a couple of times where he yells and stuff. I think it really works. It goes. I think that character would do those things and say those things that way, and so none of it felt like acting to me. It felt real. It felt true. So I really.
So for me, like the first time I saw it, I definitely agreed with. I mean, I thought for the most part the performance was solid, but I felt like that there were those moments where it did take me out a little bit. But I didn't get to finish.
There's one moment.
I didn't get to finish the whole movie like for
this rewatch.
This rewatch. But I did watch it a second time not too long ago. So this is like I've seen it 2.5 times, and I remember the second time I watched it, I didn't have much problem at all with any of it. I thought the performance and the extreme moments of acting were fine, just because he's just this crazy, psychotic guy that is. I mean, he does a really good job of just being a deranged serial killer.
Yeah,
and when he takes the mask off, I think he becomes even more serial killer like, honestly. He's kind of just got this Dahmer kind of
like
this about him.
Yeah.
Let's jump real quick to since we're talking about him and his performance. The scene that is at the end of the movie where he's talking with the Joker. What are your thoughts on that?
So this is the scene I was referring to earlier that left the bad taste in my mouth. When I saw it the first time, I hated it. I went on Stu's podcast and just went off about how much I hated that scene. I hated pretty much everything about it. I thought it was unnecessary. I hated kind of the look of the Joker. I didn't like the performance. I hated the laugh. Now, rewatching it this time, I still don't like it, but I think I was maybe a little harsh on it before. I don't hate it now this time. I still think it's unnecessary, and I still don't love the performance, but it's not as bad as I originally thought.
What about you, Stu?
I did not hate it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I think we can all agree that it was unnecessary. It didn't need to be in the movie. I think the movie would have benefited from not having that in there.
I agree.
But I don't hate it. And the thing about it is that it's the Joker, and the Joker has been played many different ways. Every time we see him, he's completely different. So I think the Joker is one of those few characters that you kind of can't get wrong. Even Jared Leto's Joker, I have grown to like. I just think he was poorly directed the first time. I think he was poorly directed the first time that we saw him. I think when we saw him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, he was leaps and bounds better than what we saw in the Suicide Squad.
Right.
I can't get on board with that either. We continue.
I just like I said, I don't think that's a character that you can butcher because he's so unpredictable. And like I said, every time we see him, whether it's live action, animation, or video game comics, he's different.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I thought it was fine. I'm not in love with it. I thought it was unnecessary, but I don't hate it.
John, on Stu's Nerd Talk, one of the things I said was, I hated it so much it made me miss Jared Leto's Joker.
Man.
And I don't know if I feel that
forgot
way
you
now,
said
but,
that.
That's wow. I hated it. So
Did you? Okay.
yeah,
All right.
I thought it was awful. And so I remember thinking maybe it could have potential. The first time I saw it, the second time I saw it, I actually went back and was like, I don't like the laugh. I really, really don't like this design. So yeah, I unfortunately we'll see where it goes. But
as far as the design, I think they did overdo it a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he has like too much going on.
Right.
But I could see where he was going with it. It's a birth defect. It's a deformity. Because I don't think they're gonna do the
acid
chemical vat.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna do that.
So
I like. It has potential. I like the intention of it. Could it have been a little bit better executed? Absolutely, but I don't hate it.
I mean, I was kind of surprised that I didn't like it because I really like Barry Keoghan as an actor. I think most of the stuff I've seen him in, I really enjoyed his performances. Something about it, I don't know. It felt, it was kind of the opposite of Paul Dano. Like it felt kind of fake, whereas Paul Dano felt so real in this movie. This just didn't feel as real to me. It felt like somebody trying to play the Joker. So yeah, it's definitely my least favorite scene in the movie. I don't hate it as much as I did, but I still, the laugh especially is bad. Not a great scene. It's the one. I mean, honestly, I don't have much bad to say about this film, but that's the one negative I have really of the whole movie is just that one scene.
For me, that scene isn't natural. It doesn't, the movie doesn't flow into that scene.
Right.
It's just there. It's like,
it's
cool, but
it felt kind of fan
we don't need it.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very fan servicey in a movie that is not really fan servicey. I mean, it served me.
right.
Because I love the aesthetic. I love a lot of the creative choices in this movie. It was definitely very heavily influenced by different mediums, animated series, movies, video games, comics. But that particular scene, it felt very random.
Right.
And I like I said, I don't hate it, but I definitely think the movie could have benefited from it not being there.
Yeah, watching it again this time, I actually thought, I mean, I like the very final scene with Batman and Catwoman going their separate ways, she turns left and he turns right and he looks at her in the rearview. I like that scene a lot, but I actually think the movie would have been like perfect if it had ended at that moment where Batman puts that woman in the helicopter thing. They have that moment where they look at each other. She grabs a hold of his arm and he's basically telling her it's okay just with his look. And then she goes up and he looks up into the sky. And I think there's a little voiceover in that moment. If it had just cut to black right there, I think it would have been like the perfect Batman movie.
I 100% agree.
But unfortunately it didn't. It goes right from that scene into that Riddler Joker scene. And it just, Ugh. But, I mean, I guess now once,
a good sound.
Now that I've got
it's a good sound.
Now that I've got it on HBO Max and I'll have it on physical, I guess I could just always stop the movie at that moment and go, there we go. That's the end of the Batman.
It's like what I planned on doing when I saw the first Hobbit movie and the others hadn't come out yet. And I remember telling myself, when all three of them come out, I can cut out all the scenes that felt like deleted scenes and then it'll be good.
You know, somebody did that actually. There's a fan edit. It's all 3 movies edited down into a 2-hour movie, where they take out all the unnecessary stuff. Like Legolas is gone because he was never in the book. You know, so
Right.
I've never actually watched it, but if I can find the link again, I'll send it to you.
I think once I finish the OG trilogy, because I still got to watch Return of the King.
Right.
I think I'm gonna watch that instead of the Hobbit movies.
There you go. Yeah, you should.
I haven't even seen it, the cut, and I would recommend that. So,
well,
back to the Batman.
Yeah, since we're talking about performances, one of my favorite performances, not just in this movie, but probably of this year, which I know is a little early to say since all the, Oscar nominees come out at the end of the year, but Colin Farrell is the Penguin. Let's talk about Colin Farrell.
Phenomenal. I still can't believe that's Colin Farrell.
I know.
And I saw a video of him putting on the makeup. I still don't believe it. Like he completely becomes Oswald Cobblepot.
Yep.
And this is probably becoming my favorite version of the Penguin.
Oh yeah.
And for a long time, my favorite version was from the Arkham games.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because he had like the like bottom of a glass bottle as a monocle. Yeah, and he had like the Cockney accent.
Right, yeah.
He was short and stumpy. Like he was everything I wanted from the Penguin. But Colin Farrell, like he nailed it.
Yeah.
He nailed it, and it was so authentic and real. That's the thing I really like about this movie is that the movie feels genuine. Outside of that Joker scene,
right?
It feels very real and like this could actually happen. These feel like real people, even more so than the Dark Knight at times.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's one of the things that just blows me away about this movie is that the Nolan trilogy for me, for the longest time, was like that's the most grounded Batman we'd ever seen. I was like, this is, if a Batman were to take place in real life, this would be it. But then this, Matt Reeves basically said, "Hold my beer," and made this movie, and this movie feels so much more grounded in reality, and it feels like if a person were to actually become Batman, this is what it would be like.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good and bad, I think, because it's good because it does have that realism to it and everything. But at the same time, when you do that, I do feel like you are almost closing the door on certain Batman villains that are so...
because it's so real, it's kind of placing itself in this real world box.
Mm-hmm.
I very, very much want to see Mr. Freeze done correctly.
Yeah, a lot of people are pushing for that for part 2.
I don't know if he can fit in this world.
Right. Yeah.
And it makes me sad because like I really want Mr. Freeze on screen because Arnie wasn't it.
Right. Really? You didn't like Arnold Schwarzenegger? No.
The Ice Age.
What killed the dinosaurs? No, well, and that's what I thought about Nolan's trilogy. I was like, there are certain villains that just wouldn't work in Nolan's trilogy, which is true. But I feel like there's almost even less villains that could maybe work in this like
universe. How would you do Poison Ivy in this movie? Like how would that happen?
Yeah, I don't think you could.
Yeah. I feel like a more natural step would be Mad Hatter or Scarecrow.
Right.
Like Scarecrow in this type of movie? Terrifying. That's terrifying.
Very true. I just don't want to see the same villains that we saw in the Nolan trilogy. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to see Scarecrow and the next one be Bane or Ra's al Ghul or something, I'd like to see some other Batman villains kind of show up. But
I could see Matt Reeves using lesser known villains. I could see him doing like Professor Pig. Like Professor Pig would be a perfect villain for this type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
You really could only do. I feel like you could really only make the villains like serial killers and doing this series as a detective series. You could do like a Mr. Freeze if Mr. Freeze was not like supernatural,
where he had to keep his body cold and a certain stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
If he was like a killer that had something to do with like freezing or, then you could call him Mr. Freeze. But
right.
If you want to keep it in the realism, that's
he can't have
only
an
route
ice gun.
Right. He couldn't have an ice gun. He couldn't have. I mean, part of what makes Mr. Freeze, though, is that suit. And so, I mean, he could have a suit.
They have to have some variation of it.
It'd be interesting. I mean, Matt Reeves has said, I think, that it would be, he's not like ruled out the possibility of having Mr. Freeze, but I don't know if he even knows what villains are going to be in part 2 yet. I mean, it's been announced, so maybe he does now, but
yeah, I know him and Robert Pattinson were talking about some things.
Gotcha.
I don't know if anything is set in stone as far as the story or characters, but it's some talks happening.
Real quick before we move on back to Colin Farrell, if I did not know that he was in this movie, I would have never been able to guess that was Colin Farrell. I would have gone, who's that actor? Like, the makeup is so good. I've never seen makeup that good.
Yeah. You know what that kind of reminds me of? Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder.
Right, yeah.
I didn't know that was Tom Cruise.
Oh, really?
Because his makeup was so good in that movie. And he's playing this over the top producer, Les Grossman. Yeah. And I'm like, I know this person, but I don't know who it is.
That's
so
funny.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If I didn't already know who it was, I wouldn't have known.
Yeah. There's maybe like 1 or 2 lines where you can kind of hear Colin Farrell's voice kind of come out. But it really, like, wouldn't have even been able to place it off of his voice. I mean, he's just, he is so Oswald Cobblepot that you can't see. I can never even see Colin Farrell. Like, sometimes you can kind of see in the eyes, you're like, oh, okay, I see the actor there.
Yeah.
I still can't see Colin Farrell when I see him on screen. Like, it's amazing.
And he gave us probably the funniest scene in the movie. When they're interrogating
the El Rada part. World's greatest detectives.
The world's greatest detectives. You can't tell the difference between L and La.
I want to talk about the car chase scene, which happens right before that. But first, let's keep talking about performances here. What do you guys think about Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon or Lieutenant Gordon in this movie?
I loved him. I mean, Jeffrey Wright is one of my favorite actors. So when he was cast, I was like, he's gonna kill it. I had all the confidence in the world in him. Yeah. He's a very dedicated actor and versatile too. He's
very versatile.
He's played all different kinds of characters. So I was very confident. I was very excited when he got cast, and to see him. I hate to say it, but he's better than Gary Oldman. Well, in my opinion,
that's what I was going to say. Gary Oldman, I think, I loved Gary Oldman, and I thought he was the quintessential Commissioner Gordon. Mm-hmm. And then Jeffrey Wright in this movie, I honestly, I think I like him better than Gary Oldman too. As Commissioner Gordon, Gary Oldman is an amazing actor, and he's another actor who's very versatile and can do pretty much anything.
He's probably more versatile than he's definitely more versatile than Jeffrey Wright. He's played every kind of genre, every kind of role, every kind of movie you could think of.
But Jeffrey Wright in this movie, he's perfect as Commissioner Gordon. I love every scene with him, and I like how closely Batman and Commissioner Gordon work in this movie too. They're basically partners in this.
They're partners. Yeah.
I think it's really cool. So
when I first saw him, I noticed he's very soft spoken, and he almost comes across as timid in the beginning,
a little bit,
and then you have the scene where they take Batman in after the explosion, and he gets up, and all the police are going crazy, and then Gordon, gets up on Batman and has this moment, and I was like, oh man, this is good.
I love that scene.
That scene is fantastic.
And I think that his timidness at the beginning really escalates that moment when he's like get a hold of yourself.
Yeah.
And it really like shows Jeffrey Wright's acting ability, because he's Commissioner Gordon, but he's playing Commissioner Gordon acting in a very antagonistic role in that particular scene, because he's trying to create a diversion for Batman.
He's got to like appear angry at him, but he's at the same time he's like, we got to get you out of here, man.
We got to get you out of here.
Well, he's also mad at him because Batman is like fighting basically, and he's like, what are you doing? This is not you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I don't think he's so much mad at him. I think he's like mildly annoyed.
Right.
It's
like
making
you're just making things worse, man.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, snap out of it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I love that scene too, because in Batman's eyes, everybody in that room is corrupt except Gordon.
It's crooked,
and so he has no problems, punching cops and stuff. And Gordon's like, you're just making things worse, man. So you gotta cool it. Yeah. Zoe Kravitz, Selena Kyle. What do you guys think about her?
Love her. She did a fantastic job.
It's pretty. She does awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I still think that Michelle Pfeiffer is like the quintessential.
She will always be my Catwoman, I think.
But Zoe Kravitz does a great job.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. She I think she does a great job with the role, and I love the whole storyline about her and Carmine Falcone or Falcone. I never know how they pronounce it.
However you want to say it
is the right way. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I think I always said it Falcone, but I think in the movie they say Falcone, but I can't remember. Anyway,
yeah, they say Falcone. I've always said Falcone. They say Falcone in a lot of different mediums actually, but so I've always said Falcone.
So we're right and they're all wrong. Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Cool. We are the end all be all.
Right. But yeah, I like. I think her performance is fantastic. I think she's really great as Catwoman, but she's also really good in those Selena scenes where she's at the club and she's kind of, when they're working together. That scene's on right now on my TV. She's got the contact lens in so he can see what she sees and stuff.
Yeah, she's definitely the most vulnerable Catwoman that we've seen.
Yeah.
She has no problem letting Batman in emotionally,
right?
Which we haven't seen before. I don't think we've ever seen that in any Catwoman representation. I
don't think so,
including animation.
Right.
But she's definitely the most vulnerable, the most emotionally aware. But yeah, she definitely just completely lets him in and is like, yep, this is me. This Catwoman is very authentic.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I really liked, and I think Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz have a great chemistry. Like I really bought in that they had that kind of relationship, even though it wasn't didn't have a whole lot of time and I guess to form, but it felt real at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think part of that is because they're actually friends in real life. They
nice.
knew each other
That's
well
cool.
before this movie, so I think that helps as well.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm sure it does. Just because the scene is on, I did not know Peter Sarsgaard was in this movie until I saw it in the theater. Even though he shows up in that trailer that I said I watched a bajillion times, he already has the bomb on him, and he's got the duct tape on his mouth and everything, so I couldn't tell it was him.
Yeah, he's completely covered up. He's out of focus. You don't know it's him. But.
So I thought it was cool that he was in the movie. His in real life, his wife is Maggie Gyllenhaal, so she was in The Dark Knight and he's in the Batman, which I thought was kind of neat.
I actually wanted to talk about the scene with him and the.
Rachel!
I was going to say the scene with the contacts. To me, I didn't like the look of the conversations through the contact lenses, like, because I like Peter Sarsgaard too, but for me, I felt like, particularly this scene where you're getting most of his camera time through the contact lens, and it just felt like
a movie.
It felt like he wasn't talking to someone.
He was talking to a camera.
It felt like he was talking to a camera. Yeah. It felt too movie-ish. I completely understand what you mean. It didn't. That's one of the very few things that didn't feel real.
Gotcha.
That didn't feel authentic. So I completely agree there.
Huh. I never picked up on that really, but I can see that. It's interesting. We could go through this whole cast. There's so many good performances in the movie. John Turturro. Yeah. I saw somebody complain about John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. I think that person was stupid because I think he's perfect.
He's the best version of Carmine Falcone that we've gotten.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's not even up for debate.
I mean he looks just
that person is drunk.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean he I feel like they took the Carmine Falcone from Long Halloween and put him on the screen, and they picked the perfect person to play him. I think they. Mm-hmm. I mean, perfect casting in my opinion. John Turturro, I think, knocked it out.
John Turturro, another fantastic, versatile actor who's played in every genre you can think of. I mean, the cast for this entire movie is phenomenal.
Talk too long just about the cast, I think.
Yeah,
because I haven't even asked you guys what you feel about Robert Pattinson. I was going to save him for the end, but then I realized I was like, there's too many people in this movie. I haven't talked about Andy Serkis yet.
Right? So, Andy Serkis was fantastic. Oh, yeah,
he does very well with the little time that he's given.
Such a good Alfred. I can't wait. I'm very excited to see more screen time with him.
I am too. And one of the things that really surprised me the first time I saw it was their relationship. It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not the Bruce and Alfred relationship that we've seen in every other version of Batman. They aren't really working together. Bruce is doing his Batman thing by himself, and Alfred's not really a part of it. And so it seems like he kind of becomes a part of it when he starts trying to figure out the cipher and stuff. And and obviously once Alfred has the near-death experience, they get closer with that and everything too. So yeah, I'm super excited to see more of Andy Serkis' Alfred because I really liked his portrayal of Alfred. I think my favorite Alfred so far is Jeremy Irons, but this one might be, he might,
I think Andy Serkis might be my favorite.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's just, his performance just is so fun to watch and it just feels good.
Yeah. My favorite for a long time was Michael Caine.
Yeah.
But I think it's now become Jeremy Irons. Just because every time he's on screen, I smile. Mm-hmm. He reminded me of the animated series when it came to his quips and he's very quick with it. He's the most witty live action Alfred that we've seen.
That's definitely true. I can agree with that.
And I think that's why he's my favorite because he's easily the funniest. Yeah.
I like how in this one too it shows that Alfred has there's other, there's she wouldn't have made, but there's people under Alfred.
Yeah.
He's basically the house manager. He's not really a butler. He manages.
So someone had to come and say, "There's someone at the door," and he's like, "Oh, let him in."
Right.
You know,
and it makes sense because
it's Bruce Wayne.
Are butlers a thing anymore now? I feel like they're not.
Probably not.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I'm not rich.
I don't have one. Yeah, I was going to say I don't have one.
I'm the butler in my house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, it absolutely makes sense. I mean, it is kind of crazy to have one person take care of. I mean, even when they're in Wayne Tower in this movie, but yeah, like in previous versions, like I think about that huge mansion in Batman Forever, and it's just one guy who has to take care of that entire thing,
Listen.
And make Batman costumes.
I do not believe that Michael Gough's Alfred was cleaning that entire house. I don't believe it for 1 second.
He brought his staff when Bruce wasn't looking.
He called the maid or something.
Right.
I don't believe that he was cleaning that whole house by himself. It was a lot of dirt in that house. I know it was.
Right.
Plenty of dust.
And he offered to do Dick Grayson's laundry too. He was like, "Don't, I'll get to that." The guy has so much time.
No, you won't.
He doesn't sleep.
No, you won't.
I really like in this movie how it is Wayne Tower. They talk about how the part of Wayne Manor, or maybe it was Wayne Manor, they ended up giving to the orphanage, and so now the Waynes have the Wayne Tower rather than Wayne Manor. I thought that was a really interesting take, and I love how gothic Wayne Tower is too. Like, it's a very interesting building, and so because of that, it's also a different Batcave. It's like an old subway terminal,
yeah,
which I think is a really, really interesting design as well.
Yeah, I've always liked it's kind of a tie. Dark Knight Rises. I love the Batcave in Dark Knight. I love the Batcave in Dark Knight
that's
Rises. Cool. But I really, really like the Batcave in BVS. Yeah. And I love the fact that Bruce Wayne kind of sees Wayne Manor as a mausoleum now, because he's like, this place just reminds me of what I lost. I don't want to live here. Yeah. And I that feels so natural for Batman. But I do love this new take that they took, making making the new Wayne Manor a part of Wayne Tower.
Right.
Because we've never seen that before, but that also feels very natural.
Right. Well, it puts him right, like Wayne Tower, I assume, is kind of in the center of the city. And so he doesn't have, that's one of the things that's always kind of, not silly, but just kind of interesting about Batman is he always, like, when he's done crime fighting, has to drive, I don't know, 30 minutes to get back to Wayne Manor, So that's kind of a cool take, I thought.
It probably doesn't take him that long.
No, probably. He's in the Batmobile. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's not obeying any traffic.
15 minutes.
I can do it in 10. Well, let's talk about, before we move on to other things, I want to talk about one last performance. Robert Pattinson, of course, the man himself. How do you guys feel about Robert Pattinson as the Batman?
He sucks.
Yeah,
hate him.
The worst.
The first time I heard him talk, I'm like thinking, is he going Bale?
Right.
But it really works.
Yeah.
His voice sounds great. It's not too gruff, but it's, it's got the right touch, and like we've said so many times before, it's believable. That
it's very stoic.
Yeah. The one thing that I like, but I feel like it might be overused, but I can understand why they would do it, and you guys probably disagree with me, but is how he is always walking so slow, and they focus on that like 3 different times at least throughout just the one viewing. So I definitely like it the first time, but you never see Batman really quickly moving anywhere unless he's like in a fight.
Right. Right. That's true.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. They do use the slow walk a lot. I think it works best in the opening of the movie because it makes him feel very scary. You hear his footsteps.
It's a good introduction.
And at the crime scene. I think it works really well in the crime scene too.
Yeah. But I kind of feel what you're saying, because if I were to make a Batman movie, I wouldn't necessarily have the walk in there that many times. I would just have him like just kind of appear. You don't really see him in the room. He's just there.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I'm maybe in the future, Batman 2, maybe that's what he'll start kind of doing. But I really like the slow walk. One of the things that I kind of really enjoy about it is it has a Western feel to it. I think the when we first see him fighting the gang, and then again after the car chase scene where he's walking to Penguin's car that's upside down, I swear they added in like spur noises.
Spurs.
Because every step he kind of has that like that kind of jingle sound to it, and it just reminds me of a gunslinger. It's like it's just, I think it's really cool. And maybe it's overused a little bit, but I didn't really have a problem with his slow walk. I love the fact that there are a few times in the movie where somebody is like, "What are you doing?" or and he just looks at them. He doesn't say a word, I'm like, that is so Batman.
The one cop with the mustache.
Yeah.
That I really like that scene. Because he did it like 3 times in the same scene.
Right.
And each look he gave him is like, who are you? Like, why are you even talking to me? Here? I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think Robert Pattinson is amazing as Batman. I knew he was going to do a good job. He's a great actor. I've enjoyed a lot of the movies he's made recently. I also really like that he apparently is kind of a troll to reporters, because before any footage came out from this movie, he was promoting, I think, The Lighthouse. And I don't know if you guys saw The Lighthouse, but Willem Dafoe in that movie is kind of a pirate, has kind of the, like, an old school, like, "Arr, pirate" voice, you know, in it. And somebody asked him what his Batman voice was going to be like. And he was like, well, Willem in this movie, he was like, was a huge inspiration. He's like, it sounds a lot like Willem in this movie. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst Batman of all time. He's going to come out and be like, "Arr, I'm Batman," you know? But he was just messing with the reporter. He was like, I'm not telling you what you want to hear. I'm just going to joke around with you. So I think that was pretty great. I've
not seen The Lighthouse, but I do plan on watching it too.
It's an interesting movie, I'll say that. But I like his voice. I think he did a great job with the Batman voice. There is one line where it sounds just like Christian Bale, and it's near the end of the movie. I forget who he's talking to or what he says, but he calls somebody a psycho. Oh, I think he's talking to the Riddler. Yeah. It's in that scene with the Riddler, and he's like, "You're a psychopath." You know, it just sounds like a lot like Bale in that one line.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I have no problems really with the performance at all. What do you guys think about the suit itself, the bat suit?
I like it.
I really like the suit. The cowl had to grow on me.
Yeah.
I was not really feeling how much of the jawline that it was actually exposed. I'm still not crazy about that aspect of it. But the ears and like the cranium part, that grew on me.
Yeah.
I actually really like that now because it's very form fitting to like the way an actual head is.
Yeah,
I like it.
I was in the same boat with you when I first saw like the test footage that they released. I loved the torso, like armored look, and I thought the cowl did not go with that at all. It had that, you know, it got the stitching and everything. Now I kind of almost feel the other way around. Like I actually really like the cowl. I've grown to really love it. And I think the rest of the suit is okay. The chest piece looks fine and everything. I love the bat symbol and everything, but it feels like it's something that somebody just kind of put together. And I'm hoping maybe in the next movie we have more of a Batman kind of more cohesive, perhaps, kind of suit.
Yeah.
But for this movie, I think it works really well, and I really do like it. The cowl did take a minute to grow on me because, like, this is the first cowl where we don't have kind of like a pointy nose. It's like flat in the front, and that took me a minute to get used to. But every time he shows up on screen, I'm like, man, I do like the look of that cowl. I think it looks really good.
Yeah, the nose didn't bother me too much. When I first saw it, it's the jawline and the ears.
Right. And the jawline, I think, is very reminiscent of Adam West. I think Matt Reeves is probably a fan of a lot of different versions of Batman.
Yeah, you can clearly tell.
Yeah, but the cowl, I think, takes Adam West influence. And then when you see Gotham City Hall, I can't help but think of the old Adam West show for that too. It's got like the columns and the steps leading up, which is how we used to see Batman and Robin run up to go see Commissioner Gordon every time in that old TV show. So I think there's a couple of little Easter eggs to probably multiple different versions of Batman throughout the film.
And one thing that I really like, and I'm watching it now, is the cape.
Yeah, I like the cape too.
One thing that it never really bothered me too much, but it felt kind of impractical, is that the cape went all the way to the ground. I was like, what if it snags on something? right. Like then he has to jerk back. But I like how this one stops like just at his ankles.
Yeah.
If that little like 3-inch less of cape.
Yep.
It feels more real.
I agree.
I don't think that a real Batman would have a cape going all the way down.
Right.
Like a very flowy.
Which is how Affleck's was, right? Like Affleck's kind of went pretty much all the way to the ground, right?
Yeah. I think Christian Bale's Batman had the longest cape. And then Batfleck's kind of like just touched the ground, but his was like kind of torn and tattered because he'd been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time to work on it.
Yeah, I can't make new capes. Alfred, that's your job. He's like, I've got this mansion to clean. Anyway, I'm sorry.
You know what? I don't think Jeremy Irons does much cleaning.
No, I don't think. I think that he's got a secret staff as well. Clearly,
yeah, he's definitely a house manager.
Right.
If he were in Wayne Manor, obviously they're on like a lake.
They just have the Flash clean it, you know?
That's what it is. They just have the Flash.
They just have the Flash clean it.
Takes a second.
That's awesome.
They mentioned that in one of the animated Justice League movies. Like I feel like I'm always the cleaning crew.
Well, you do it the fastest.
Like, well, you shouldn't be so fast.
The Batmobile. What do you guys think about the Batmobile? In this version of the Batmobile.
I love the introduction to it.
Yeah.
Like, you hear it just kind of revving up.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear also this music that is just starting to slowly swell. And it's
Penguin's just looking at it.
Yeah, and then you see like the outline of it with the glowing fire, and it's the design. I think it works for this movie, but as a Batmobile, I will never be able to not compare a Batmobile to the '89 Batmobile.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So, but I liked it, and I like it with this being a very early on in Batman's career. That this is kind of what he has right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It feels it kind of goes towards the realism of the film. It feels like he bought a car and made modifications to it and made it as strong as he could make it, and it's not. It doesn't have it looks similar to something we've like. I mean, I haven't seen cars with those big engines in the back, but it looks kind of like a Dodge Charger-ish kind of car. Right. It's like something we've kind of seen before, whereas the '89 Batmobile, never seen anything like that before. Even the BVS Batmobile, never seen anything like that before. The Tumbler. So it like you said, it works for this movie because this movie is so grounded and so realistic. And it's interesting to me that we only see it in that one scene. There's the car chase. And then every time he is, well, no, I guess that's not true. We do see him drive it a couple times, but most of the time he's on the motorcycle in this movie. It's like he doesn't really use the Batmobile that much in this film as his primary transportation. So I'd be curious to see if in the second one, if there's more, upgrades to vehicles as well as, maybe suits and stuff and gadgets.
Yeah. I really liked it. I agree with John. I really loved that. I love the introduction of the Batmobile. Penguin was looking at it and he's just like kind of staring, like, what is that? What is he about to do? And he kind of revs the engine just to scare him. Like it's purely just to scare him. He's not gonna actually hit him. But
he has that weird false start too. It's like he revs the engine and then he starts to go and kind of like.
That's what I didn't like.
Yeah, the false start is weird.
It felt weird. I wish he just kind of just had kept it in park, but pressed the gas and kind of made him think that he was gonna start. But that's the one thing one of the two things I didn't like about that particular chase.
What's the other thing?
The other thing is the music for the chase starts so abruptly. There's a completely different musical piece before, and it doesn't naturally flow into the car chase scene, and it feels weird.
Okay.
But it doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a
nitpicky
great
thing, right?
Yeah, it's a nitpicky thing. It's still a great car chase. I do wish that we hadn't seen that in the trailer. I get why they put it in there. They need that spectacle. Yeah, they needed that spectacle moment in the trailer, but I think that scene would have benefited from not seeing that in the trailer. As far as Batmobiles go, it's not my favorite, but I do think that it works for this movie.
Yeah.
I know they were going in this direction because one, they wanted it to feel a little bit more real, and two, we've seen Batman have a tank
right
for the last like 4 movies.
Yeah, no, that's true.
There was a bit of tank fatigue.
Yeah.
I do feel that, you know, I assume that we're gonna get a third Batman movie. By the end of that movie, I want a tank.
I want my tank back.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, we have seen I don't envy Matt Reeves or anybody that has to make a new Batman film, because you've got to create, you know, you got to have a new costume, a new Batmobile, and make it different yet still, you know, cool. Yeah. I guess you could say.
Yeah, when it comes to a Batmobile, you can make it look like whatever you want, but people have to immediately know that is the Batmobile. Right. And I feel that every Batmobile has done that. As soon as you look at it, you like that is Batman's car.
And I think that's true for this car from the back. But from the front, it kind of, well, I mean, it's still kind of an intimidating car, but from the front, it looks more like a regular kind of car. That's maybe souped up a little bit, kind of Mad Max-ish kind of style, but I do like it for this movie. I think it's pretty cool, and I love that chase scene. I do. Yeah. I didn't see, so in the final trailer they showed way too much of that chase scene. They even show the end which is an amazing shot where like his car comes to a stop, and then you see Oz's car flipping down the street. That was in the trailer, and I was like, oh, in the final trailer, which I didn't watch, and after I saw the movie, I watched it and thought, man, I'm glad I got to see that for the first time in the theater rather than in the trailer, because that was a cool, surprising ending to even though I knew Oz ended up upside down because that was in the teaser. I didn't expect him to be, you know, flipping over so many times like that. But
I also love that moment where we were talking about something you didn't expect, and he's gliding down.
Oh yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
Yes, that was a great moment. A lot of people didn't like that moment. I'm like,
really?
Why?
What?
What did they say? Why?
They didn't like that the camera was focusing on his head.
Oh, like he was wearing the camera, kind of.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, like they didn't like that. I was like, I guess I could see that, but it was different.
I thought
like,
it looked good, and I liked how it showed that Batman makes mistakes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He's
this
also
is still
he's
learning.
You know,
yeah.
He gets up and he's like limping away.
Yeah, he definitely got very, very messed up in that scene. I do like how the suit opens up into a wingsuit. However, again, I know we're at the beginning of Batman's career, so I would hope that we kind of migrate into the actual cape opening up.
Right. Again, for this movie, I think it really works because in Batman Begins, they gave us this whole scene with Lucius Fox talking about the technology and how the fabric can become rigid, and so it super works in that movie. But in this, it would have probably felt like something fake in this movie that feels so realistic if all of a sudden his cape was suddenly able to be kind of like a glider. So I agree with you. I like the wingsuit works so well in that scene and in this movie. But I hope that he kind of figures out, and again, like John said, he messes it up. You know, he screws up at the end, and so I think he's smart enough to go, okay, how can I make this better?
I need more control.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so I think hopefully we will see stuff like that in the future.
Yeah. I lost my thought. I forgot what I was getting ready to say.
There's so many scenes I want to talk about, but we've already been recording for 1 hour and 11 minutes, and I don't want to make this a 2-hour episode like No Way Home was. So I'm trying to think of any other like real.
The third act. We got to talk.
We got to talk about the third act.
Yeah,
which stinks because I didn't watch the movie. So go ahead, but I'll try to remember.
They do show a lot of this third act in the final trailer, which kind of annoys me.
Yeah, it makes me. That is what I was thinking of particularly when I said I was glad I did not watch it because, and I always do this. I always try to avoid either maiden trailers or final trailers before I see the movie, and then after I see it, I go back and watch it. And that's what I did with this, and none of the final act was in the previous trailers that I had watched. And so all of that was brand new to me, and it was glorious.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I wish that I hadn't seen that final trailer for the third act. I love the third act of this movie. The way I love what happens, like the content of the act, but I love the way it's written. Like this is a wonderful end to this kind of movie, because we in the beginning of the movie, Batman is very vengeful. They call him Vengeance throughout the whole movie. Like nobody calls him Batman. As a matter of fact, the first time we hear the word Batman is from Robert Pattinson's mouth when they're in Riddler's apartment. That's the first time we hear the word Batman. Yeah. But I love how he starts the movie out as very, angry and fierce and vengeful, and throughout the movie little things happen to show him that he needs to change, because although he's very much Batman throughout the whole movie, he's not quite the Batman that we all know.
Right.
By the end of this movie, by the time, the Gotham Square floods and he saves everybody and gets to the helicopter, that shot right there, he's finally the Batman that we know. Even honestly, even before that, when he falls
into the water, and gets the flare and everything,
and rises back up, that was like symbolic of a baptism,
right? And
he was like being reborn as the Batman that we know. And when he's holding the flare, that kind of like represents like he's a beacon of light. He's not just a vigilante. He's not just a crime fighter. He's a symbol of hope now. And I thought that was brilliant. And you see the people following him like that. The third act is beautiful, bro.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
I remember, I think I got like chills during that. And
yes.
And the moment that really gets you is like when he reaches out for who's the
mayor elect, basically.
Yes.
Rial. Yeah.
Yes. Rial, right. So, and like he's reaching out and she's like not reaching for him.
Right. She's scared of him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then someone else comes.
The kid.
It's the kid, mayor, the
mayor's son. Yeah.
Right. And then after that, the feeling of trust comes, and she takes his hand, and they all just go with him. And
that scene is on right now. I'm watching it right now. That's crazy. Like as you were describing it, it was actually happening. Yeah. Like beat for beat.
I feel like it's a little bit too much water for the incident, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, the city is flooded.
I know.
And I think it's supposed to be kind of like an island, like Manhattan, where it's like surrounded by water.
Yeah.
But it's also, it talks about seawalls and stuff, so I don't know I don't know exactly how it works, but it seemed mostly believable to me. The one thing that I had a problem with was the cops and everything were sending everybody into Gotham City Gardens, which is the stadium that they're in, which looks like you enter on ground level and then go down to get to like the seating. And I'm like, that's the worst place you would go to for a flood. Because once all the water comes in, it like starts going down into where all the people are.
Right.
And so I just thought, well, that seemed like it was either a poorly designed stadium or.
I think it's a poorly designed stadium because it feels small.
It did. Yeah. It did.
It doesn't feel like a stadium. It just feels like a glorified auditorium. But looking at it now in this scene where it's a wide shot, bird's eye view, it looks big, but like when you get in there, it don't look that big.
Right.
And maybe because it's dark and
maybe
there's a lot going on at that time. So
another thing you'll notice too during the scene, like before that, when they're up on top with the rifles and everything, The scene takes a while, and during the entire scene, there are people screaming and running and everything, and there's still so many people just hanging out, towards
just chilling.
Yeah, that should have left, and then I think whatever they're on top or on, does it fall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
the
the Jumbotron, yeah.
Yeah, so when people hear that's falling, you've got lots of people screaming, and I'm like, these people have been shooting people for 10 minutes now. Why are they still in the room?
They're like, it's Gotham,
I think outside was completely flooded. That's why at the end they're on the roof. They where they're gonna go.
They had nowhere to run.
They're surrounded by water.
Which is kind of, I think that was probably the Riddler's plan. He knew they were all going to end up in that building. They couldn't leave, and so it would have been just shooting. I don't know what the phrase is, fish in a barrel or something. But one of the things that always kind of makes me laugh is the scene with Rial, where Commissioner Gordon's like, we got to get you out of here. And she's like, I'm not leaving. And he's like, we're under attack. It's not safe here. And she's like, no, it's fine. She's like, that's the problem with this city. And she walks out and she's like, everybody calm down. And then immediately gets shot. And she lives, obviously.
I thought that was funny, actually.
Right.
I mean, I didn't laugh out loud, but I was like, huh. Yeah, that's what you get for this.
Yeah. Probably should have listened to Gordon. He knows what he's talking about. One of my
I think it would have been great, if she got out there and told everyone to calm down and everyone just stops panicking.
Oh, you're right. You're right. One of my absolute favorite moments in the final act is, and it's another kind of Batman learning moments, which I think are pretty great in this movie, is he's hanging from the Jumbotron and there's a couple of Riddler henchmen coming and he sees the fire extinguisher. And he's like, I can use this. And he puts his little bomb on the fire extinguisher and basically creates his first smoke bomb. And it's just one of those things where it's just he's like, yes, I can use this to my advantage. And he's going to add that to his arsenal from here on out.
What makes that scene special is because he's figuring it out.
Right.
It's not like it's just already there. Like he had to literally assess the situation. It's like, I can use that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love it.
Yeah, I love that moment. And I love him coming out of the smoke too and tackling the guy. And it's just, that whole fight scene is amazing.
Yeah. I really like the fight choreography in this movie. It feels very real and brawler like he's not a martial artist, and I love it.
Right. It feels like he's definitely been trained, but he wasn't trained by the League of Shadows like Christian Bale was, and
he knows what he's doing, but he's not an athlete.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and that's one thing that I really didn't like about the Dark Knight trilogy was the fight choreography. That's probably, in my opinion, that's one of the worst things about the Dark Knight trilogy is the fight choreography. Batman feels very stiff. And for the first two movies, I really don't like it. Dark Knight Rises, it makes sense story-wise because he's old and he doesn't move very well. Right. So it makes sense why he would move like that, but Batman at his peak should not be moving that slow.
Right. Do you think it was just the limitations of the suit? Of the costume itself?
In the first movie, I could see that.
Yeah.
In the second movie, they addressed that the suit is more agile, with he can turn his head, the separation of the plates. So he should have more fluid movement, but he doesn't. I just don't think that Christopher Nolan, I don't think his strong suit is fight scenes.
Gotcha.
And I mean, he's my favorite director. He can almost do no wrong except fight scenes.
Gotcha. So there's a moment in this final act where it's kind of brutal, where Batman gets shot in the chest with a shotgun or a rifle or something, and Selina actually kind of saves him, but then Selina gets ripped off of him by one of the Riddler henchmen, and Batman struggles to get up, and so he ends up injecting something into his leg.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. Well, that was what I was going to ask you and John was, I assume it was probably just adrenaline, but it was green in the tube. And so part of me wondered, is that opening the door to Venom and Venom? Like maybe Bruce kind of created Venom not inadvertently, but maybe it gets put in the wrong hands in future installments.
Now that you say that, I know a lot of people thought that it could have been Venom, but like now that you've kind of like put it in the words of he inadvertently created Venom, that kind of makes me want to see Bane in this universe now, because I know we would be repeating the last trilogy, but the fact that Batman would be indirectly responsible for Bane's creation, that's brilliant.
I think that's pretty cool. And it would be cool to see a live action Bane use Venom that's not from the one from Batman and Robin. You know what I mean? Like it would be kind of, I just think it would be kind of interesting. Although I don't know if that fits into this universe, the whole idea of using Venom, and I don't know if he would get bigger if he uses Venom, but maybe it would just make him stronger.
If they use it the way they use it in this movie, just make it, it'll be a variation of adrenaline.
Yeah.
But it has, some weird side effects. Maybe it makes your veins green.
Right.
I think it clearly like could give him some kind of addiction to it. So it could work.
I think the fact that they've even had it a thing, Justin, and the fact that it's green, I think you are actually probably onto something there. Because why would they even need to just have him use that in the first place?
Right.
Well, it makes sense.
I mean, it does, but the fact that you even take the time to put it in there seems like there's a reason for it. You know what I mean?
It could be. I hate to say it because it kind of diminishes the movie, but it could be a Deus Ex Machina, which is like just the plot convenience,
right?
Just it could be that. I hope it's not that, but I could see it being like that. Like Batman is injured and he has to save.
Yeah, it could have been another.
How is he going to all of a sudden be strong not injured and then beat the crap out of these guys,
right?
And then also go on to save people, right?
Yeah. So it could be that, but I would hope that it's not that. I really hope it's what you said. Now that you said it,
right? Well, I kind of hope so too. But at the same time, even if it is just adrenaline, it also just shows us the lengths that he goes to be Batman. You know what I mean? Like, and the stress that he puts on his physical body and everything, being Batman.
Yeah.
But I do there is a part of me that kind of hopes that it's Venom. I think that would be pretty neat.
Yeah. The music.
Yes. So I think this score is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite Michael Giacchino scores. One of my friends from California said that she didn't like it because it reminded her too much of the Imperial March from Star Wars. I don't really get that. I can kind of see maybe what she's talking about, but it's not close enough to me to take me out of it at all.
Yeah, I disagree with that. That it doesn't remind me of that.
Yeah. I never once thought while watching the movie, hey, this is that music from Star Wars. Especially in the beginning with that voiceover and the characters who keep seeing, like you see that spray paint can roll into the dark and he's like, well, that's gone. He's like, I'm not going to get that. The music that plays during that whole scene is just so good. And in the final act too.
Specifically in that opening scene when it I can't remember exactly what part it is, but the part in the music is I guess the violins are doing this thing. It's like
oh yeah
that I was losing it. I was losing in the theater. We 10 minutes into the movie, and I'm like sitting there like a kid in the candy store. Like it's little things like that just drive me nuts in a good way.
Right.
And even in the scene where he's gliding off of GCPD, and you hear the strings go like that is just, it's so good. It's so good. The only thing I don't really like about it is that Michael Giacchino kind of overuses the main theme a little bit.
That's my only thing.
Yeah, that's my only thing. Other than that, it's great.
Because it works really well, like what Justin was saying, in the opening. It works with the walking and everything. But every time that they do those walking scenes that I was talking about earlier, like they're using that main thing. And it just, after a few times, it just almost took me out.
Yeah. And I noticed other composers do that, but one composer that does it so well that you don't even notice is Junkie XL, Tom Hogenberg. He did that a lot with Godzilla vs. Kong, where he would use Godzilla's theme over and over, but he had so many different variations of it that it sounded like a completely different a completely different motif.
Gotcha.
And I remember watching that movie for the first time, and I was kind of disappointed with the movie that it kind of took me out of everything else that was happening. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, yo, this score is actually really good. And then I went and watched a video on him making the score, and that's when I learned that he used that same motif over and over. But he's very good at making different variations of it, and I think Michael Giacchino could have benefited from that in this movie. It's the exact same motif every time we hear it. It doesn't vary much,
right? And it's so simple that it's
just two notes.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's like it works, but when they really focus on it, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get you. It you get a little bit of fatigue after a while, but it doesn't make it bad though. But I completely understand what you mean.
Well, I think I kind of have a feeling I know what your ratings are going to be, but I'd love to hear what you guys are going to rate the Batman.
What do you think I'm going to give it?
Well, John, I think you are going to give it 4 out of 5 is what I was thinking.
I think so as well.
You got it dead on.
And Stu, I think you're going to give it 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would guess that too.
You got it dead on.
And I'm also going to guess, Justin, that you're going to give it 5 out of 5.
I'm tempted, but I don't know. There's still something about it. Lately, I've been less eager, I guess you could say, to give movies 5 stars. I almost feel like they have to kind of, and not saying that this one won't, but I almost feel like they kind of have to stand the test of time a little bit before I can give it that extra half star. So for me, I
can understand.
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna give it 4.5. Is what I
okay.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna give it. 4.5. I have nothing. 4.5. Riddler greeting cards.
That's something I wanted to talk about, but it's all right.
I mean, you could have said bat signals.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say penguin top hats.
Oh, good.
Which is not
as it doesn't wear that.
I was like, what? Yeah. But no, I feel what you're saying about the 5 out of 5s, but the way I approach it, like, is it? I kind of, every movie starts out at a 5 from the beginning.
And you start removing things.
You start removing things to kind of lower it. Not enough. There wasn't enough that I didn't like to warrant moving it a little bit lower for me. Now I do my ratings on my channel 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
It's not a 10 out of 10.
Gotcha.
It's a 9.5 out of 10, which is almost classic level status, but while this is a 5 out of 5, it's not, like you said, it hasn't stood the test of time. Right. I don't know if it will be a classic, because as much as we love this movie, there are a lot of people that don't like this movie.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy to me. And it is long. I mean, it's a 3-hour movie, so that also kind of feels like how, I mean, Dark Knight is 2.5 hours, but I don't know how often I'm going to just be like, you know what, I'm going to watch The Batman, just because it's a chunk of time. So
The Dark Knight is also a very, very well-paced movie. Yeah. It's just, I don't want to say action scene after action scene, but something important happens very frequently throughout The Dark Knight. Right. That's a movie that you can't really get up and go to the bathroom.
Right.
I mean, we can, because we've seen it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
But that's not a get up and go to the bathroom type movie, because you will miss something important. This is a get up and go to the bathroom type of movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. It is slow. Sometimes the first time you definitely feel the length. The length. You definitely feel that 3-hour runtime, or 2 hours and 55 minutes. The more you watch it, the less you feel that runtime.
Right.
But with The Dark Knight, it's like it's so well paced that you, even after sitting there for 2.5 hours, you want more.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
So.
And the ending, if that stupid Joker scene wasn't in this movie, that's how this movie would end. Because if it had ended with the helicopter shot, or even if it had just cut to him and Selena right after that and had the departure shot, I would have been like, I could have sit through this movie for another hour. But because of that stupid Joker scene, it leaves you going, what was that? You know?
Exactly.
So. So I honestly, like, if we don't do obviously 3/4, because that would be silly, but this movie's probably like a 4.75 out
4
of 5.
3/4. Yep. I feel the exact same way, but because 4.5 out of 5 translates to 9 out of 10.
Gotcha.
So I do think it's higher than a 9. I kind of got to give it 5 out of 5.
All right. Hey, that's cool. I get it.
And we have been doing a lot of good movies lately, with the exception of
Ghost Rider 2.
Ghost Rider.
Yeah. Which I got to get out of.
Oh, man.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah, lucky you.
I was seeing Billy Joel. Which was...
That's right. Our next movie will be... I don't know. What's a really terrible movie? And
you're going to be there for that, John. For sure. There will be no Billy Joeling out of that one.
We'll skip all of the other Transformers and we'll do Transformers The Last Night.
That's
what will be. That's what we'll make John watch.
Oh, man.
I've only seen the first 3.
Well, the 4 and 5
You've seen
awful.
4 isn't that bad. 4 is too long.
4 is so long.
If 4 wasn't so long, it'd be okay.
Yeah.
5 is bad. 5 is really the only reason to watch that movie is the third act. The third act is
the action and stuff.
Is a great spectacle scene, but I have no idea what the movie is about, and I've seen the movie 3 times.
I've only seen it once, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
None of the characters
than the fact that, like, Optimus Prime was bad for part of it or something.
Yeah, none of the characters are interesting.
Yeah.
You're really only going to see the robots, the Transformers transform and fight.
Did Michael Bay do the 5th one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
He did all of them except Bumblebee.
Yeah.
He was very invested in that
franchise.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to know what you think about the Batman. You can always let us know at our website, cinemaheroes.com, or you can leave us a comment on this YouTube video. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave us a comment down below what you loved or didn't like about the Batman. You can also tweet at us or comment on our Instagram post. Both handles are Cinema Heroes. Or you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/SM and SM podcast. But I think that about wraps it up for this episode. I'm Justin Speck.
I'm John Pelzo.
And I'm Jay Stu.
As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing.